here. So let's start right with the big news this week from President Obama, imposing those sanctions on Russia, expelling those diplomats.
I think one of the questions that we have is why the magnitude of this. I mean, when you look at 35 people being expelled, 2 sites being closed down, the question is that response in proportion to the actions taken? Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. But you have to think about that. That's nothing that we haven't seen in modern history. And when we look back,
well, we've seen diplomats.
But hold on. Let's look at this. Yeah. In 2015, China took over 1 million records, sensitive data, people like me who had worked in the government at any time, classified our personal information, where we lived, things that we had written down on our applications or on our security clearances, and not a White House statement wasn't even issued. No action publicly was taken. Nothing. Nothing was taken when millions of people had their private information, including information on security clearances, that was shared. Not one thing happened. So there is a question about whether there's a political retribution here, whether it's versus a diplomatic response.
So it sounds like you think these measures may be too much?
Well, no. What I think is
reversing them is on the table?
The president-elect needs to sit down with the heads of the intelligence communities next week and get a full briefing on what they knew, why they knew it, and whether or not the Obama administration's response was in proportion to the actions taken. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. We need to have that briefing first. But I would argue that if you look at our history, you haven't seen a response like that in modern history for any action. Well, and when you look at the fact that China did something so egregious in 2015 and the White House did nothing publicly, not even issue a statement, except they sent everyone who had worked in the government a letter saying you get free monitoring of your credit. Right. That's all they did. They took action by sending a letter to us, not even taking an action against China. So what Russia did, we have to wait and see, but it'd be interesting.
It's interesting, though, because we see near universal support for these moves from Republicans in Congress. In fact, Mitch McConnell called them a good first step and suggested that Republicans in the Senate may actually move to impose stiffer sanctions as punishment for Russia. Does President-elect Trump oppose those efforts?
I think what he's going to do, as I said, is sit down with the heads of the intelligence committees, get a full briefing on what they knew, whether or not and then he can determine whether or not the actions were taken. But as you saw, President Putin said he's not going to retaliate in the way he initially suggested. He wants to wait for President Trump to come in. I think that shows you the power that President Trump has. He's already had unbelievable success domestically with bringing back jobs from Carrier and Sprint. No, hold on. And I think that around the world, foreign leaders are seeing what we're seeing here in this country, which is that business as usual is over. President Trump is not only going to put the American worker first, but he's going to restore America's place in the globe.
But what's the bottom line? Just a yes or no answer. Does President-elect Trump now accept the fact that Russia was behind the DNC hack?
Well, I think that there's a report that came out the other day that got issued on the 29th that the intelligence committees put out. And while the media played it up as this report about the hacking, what it actually is, if you look through it and it's available online, is a series of recommendations that should be taken, like changing passwords, changing administrative rights. What it shows is that by all measures, the Democratic National Committee had a very lax IT support. Now, hacking is wrong by any standards. No one supports anyone hacking into any other entity, legal, domestically or foreign, or anyone interfering in anything. But the fact of the matter is, what this report really does show is that there's a need for them to go back in and look at what they're doing IT-wise to protect their system.
Absolutely. But you do see, I have the report too, you do see the headline, Russian malicious cyber activity. It makes it clear, and it names Russia, gives the IP addresses.
Right, and then it says actions to take, back up the system.
Right.
Staff training.
Absolutely.
Mitigating patch applications.
But does he accept that Russia was behind this now?
Well, I think, like I said, he has to have the briefing from the intelligence committee next week.
So he's still not there yet?
It's not a question of not there yet, Jonathan. It's a question of getting the information. Everyone in the media wants to jump forward and make a conclusion based off other sourced information, anonymous sources that are coming out of the intelligence committee. He's going to do this right.
Well, this is no longer anonymous. This is a public statement.
What this says is that the DNC had a problem with their IT security and people tried to hack it, and they need to do a better job of protecting it.
Russians
but the fact of the matter is, we're having part of a conversation. Why aren't we talking about the other influences on the election? Why aren't we talking about Hillary Clinton? Get debate questions ahead of time. That's a pretty valid attempt to influence an election. Somebody giving her the debate questions and the answers of an election. No. It's not. Hey, no one's asking those questions. And the fact is that everyone wants to make Donald Trump admit to certain things. When are we going to start talking about the other side of this, which is what did Hillary Clinton do to influence the election? Is she being punished in any way? What are we doing to make sure that people don't get the debate questions ahead of time. Because I can tell you this, if my boss at the time, Reince Priebus, had gotten the debate questions and handed them off, he would have been driven out of this town at a stake, and Donald Trump would have been vilified. No one wants to ask those questions now.
Just to be clear, that was during the Democratic primary. It was not in the debates with Donald Trump. But let me move on.
So it makes it better?
No, I'm just want to be clear what we're talking about. You're going back to the primary.
I'm sorry that I'm going back, because that's who ultimately ended up the Democratic nominee.
Well,
so you can't sort of say, let's go back only part way. The fact of the matter is, Bernie Sanders gave her a heck of a run. If he had actually not had the same information, maybe he could have done, maybe not. But you can't have as part of a conversation. I think we have to look at this holistically.
Okay.